Have you ever wondered why you always find fault with the right person? Why the moment someone truly gets close, you find a reason to run away? Jung spent decades studying this phenomenon, and what he discovered will shock you. Because the fear of intimacy isn't about other people. It's about a part of you you don't even know exists. Carl Jung wasn't just a psychiatrist. He was an explorer of the human mind, a man who dared to delve into the darkest realms of the psyche when other scientists were still afraid to admit the unconscious existed. In 1912, something extraordinary happened in Jung's life. He was at the height of his career, working alongside Freud, revolutionizing psychology, but then he began to notice a disturbing pattern in his patients. Intelligent people, successful, seemingly balanced. They all came to his office with the same devastating complaint. They were sabotaging their own relationships, and they didn't understand why. Jung became obsessed with this question, because these people weren't victims of circumstance. They were the architects of their own loneliness, and this went against everything he believed about the human instinct for connection. For months he observed, noted, analyzed, and then one October afternoon in 1912, the truth struck him like a bolt of lightning. The problem wasn't in these people's relationships. The problem was in the silent war they waged with themselves. A war so subtle, so unconscious, that they didn't even know they were fighting it. Jung realized that there is an invisible force within us all, a primitive ancestral force that was created to protect us from pain, but in the process, it also protected us from love. He called this force many names over the years: the shadow, the guardian, the saboteur within. But all these names describe the same terrifying reality. There is a part of you that prefers your solitude to the possibility of being hurt again. And here's what struck Jung most. This force isn't evil, it's not a flaw. It's a survival mechanism that worked perfectly when you were a child, but is now destroying your ability to love and be loved. Jung understood that this discovery would forever change our understanding of relationships, because for the first time in the history of psychology, someone was looking at the fear of intimacy not as a weakness, but as an unconscious protective strategy, a strategy that needed to be understood, respected, and ultimately transformed. Let me tell you about Helena. It's not her real name, but her story is completely true, documented in Jung's clinical diaries between 1913 and 1915. Helena was 28 years old when she first entered Jung's office. She was a striking woman, the daughter of an aristocratic Swiss family. She spoke 4 languages, played the piano like a virtuoso, and had a smile that lit up any room. On the outside, Helena was perfect. On the inside, she was falling apart. In the past 5 years, Helena had rejected 7 marriage proposals. 7 different men, all of them suitable, respectable, and genuinely interested in her. And with each rejection, she felt as if she were betraying herself. "Dr. Jung," she said in the first session, tears in her eyes, "I can't understand what's wrong with me. I want to love. I want to be loved. But whenever someone comes close, I find reasons to push them away." Jung asked her to describe her last relationship. Helena had met Thomas the previous summer. He was a doctor, kind, and intelligent. For 3 months, everything seemed perfect. "But then," Helena continued, "he started bringing me flowers every Friday, always at 6 o'clock in the evening, always white roses. And I started to hate him for it." Jung leaned forward. "Why?" "Because it was too predictable. Because it meant he was trying to win me over with empty gestures. Because," she trailed off, confused by her own words, "because he was being too nice, and it irritated me deeply." It was at this moment that Jung first saw the shadow in action. Helena wasn't rejecting Thomas because he was inadequate. She was rejecting his kindness because, deep down, she didn't believe she deserved to be treated with kindness. And more than that, she was terrified of getting used to that affection and then losing it. During subsequent sessions, Jung uncovered the origin of this pattern. Helena's father was a brilliant but emotionally volatile man. He alternated between moments of absolute tenderness and periods of icy coldness. As a child, Helena never knew which version of her father she would encounter when she arrived home. At age 7, she developed an unconscious strategy. It was best not to cling too tightly to the good times, because they always ended. It was safer to maintain an emotional distance, even from the people who loved her. Your mind has created a guardian, Jung explained to Helena in the 10th session. A protector who whispers beware whenever someone offers you what you desire most. Consistent, true love. Helena was silent for long minutes. Then for the first time, she managed to name what she felt. It's like there are two people inside me. One who desperately wants to be loved, and another who does everything to make sure that never happens. Jung wrote this sentence in his diary that night. He had just witnessed the most important discovery of his career. The human being is not a psychological unity. We are a multiplicity. And sometimes these inner parts are at all-out war with each other. Helena's case revealed to Jung that the fear of intimacy isn't about incompatibility or bad luck in love. It's about an internal battle between the part of us that yearns for connection and the part that protects us from the possibility of being hurt again. And this battle, Jung discovered, is fought on a battlefield we don't even realize exists. Our own hearts. But wait, things get even more disturbing than you imagined. Because Jung discovered that the fear of intimacy isn't just a simple fear. It's a true civil war taking place within your own mind. And you are at once the battlefield and all the soldiers involved in the conflict. This war is fought between two fundamental forces. What you desire most deeply, connection, love, true closeness, and the primitive part of you that fears the devastating suffering that same connection can bring. Imagine two voices inside your own heart, fighting in absolute silence. On one side, hope whispers, "This time it can be different. This time I can trust." On the other side, fear screams, "Remember last time? Remember how much it hurt? It's not worth the risk." Then what makes this battle even more cruel is that it takes place entirely outside your consciousness. You don't see the troops moving. You don't hear the shots being fired. You don't realize a war is being waged within you until you awaken alone, once again, without understanding exactly how you got there. And here's what Jung discovered that was most devastating. Most of the time, the one who wins this internal war is precisely the part that wants to protect you from pain. And to do that, it's also willing to protect you from joy, connection, and true love. Jung explained that this internal war creates a deep split within your psychological being. There is the conscious, what you believe yourself to be, what you show the world, what you declare you want. And there is the unconscious, the repressed, denied, and feared parts that lurk in the shadows of your soul and act without your awareness. This internal division isn't just conceptual. It manifests itself in real, devastating behaviors. Inexplicable self-sabotage, the paralyzing fear of letting go, the emotional retreat at the exact moment someone truly gets close, the sudden distancing from the people you love. That's why you so often find yourself destroying your own chances for happiness as if there were an invisible force working against you. Because there really is an invisible force, and it's within you. But it gets even worse. Jung realized that this war isn't a defect or a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism that worked perfectly when you were vulnerable and defenseless. The problem is that now, when you most need the courage to love, this same mechanism continues to operate with the efficiency of a war machine. And here lies Jung's most revolutionary discovery. To find true healing, you can't simply try to win this inner war by destroying the fearful side, because that side isn't your enemy. It's your protector who never learned that you grew up. The solution isn't victory for one side over the other. It's integration. It's making peace with oneself. It's transforming civil war into conversation, conflict into understanding, division into wholeness. And it is precisely this path of internal reconciliation that we will explore together next. Jung gifted us with many profound discoveries about the human mind, but none as profound and transformative as the concept of the shadow. And when we talk about relationships, this discovery becomes even more revolutionary. The shadow isn't simply a dark or malevolent side of our personality. It's actually everything we repress, deny, or refuse to see within ourselves. It's our deepest fears, hidden insecurities, repressed impulses, and desires we deem unacceptable. But here's what Jung discovered that's most disturbing. When we talk about fear of intimacy, the shadow takes on a central and devastating role. Because it's precisely this hidden part that makes us fear true, deep connection with another person. Imagine this. When you open up to someone, you're not just revealing your visible, controlled side. You're also, often without realizing it, bringing to the surface all that shadow we carry within us. The insecurities you don't even admit to having. The old pains you swore you'd overcome. The wounds that haven't fully healed. The desires and fears you don't even know how to name. And it is this shadow of love that creates the terror of intimacy. Because what truly scares us is not love itself. It's what love can expose. Love lays bare what we hide even from ourselves. Jung described the shadow as a blind spot in our psyche. It's a place where we harbor everything we reject in a desperate attempt to maintain our idealized image and sense of security. And herein lies the cruel paradox. The more we try to ignore or deny this shadow part, the stronger and denser it becomes, ready to manifest exactly when we least expect it. That's why we often project these dark aspects onto others. You feel an intense dislike or inexplicable discomfort towards someone, and Jung explains that this may mean you're seeing reflected in that other person some trait you yourself deeply reject. This projection isn't just a defense mechanism. It's also an unconscious way of keeping oneself away from intimacy. Because if you recognize your own shadow, you'll have to face it, and that's terrifying. Jung discovered that true love invites us to a radical encounter with our own totality, our light and our shadow. And this confrontation is intense, painful, and at the same time profoundly liberating. It is in the vulnerable space of intimacy that the shadow has its chance to be seen, understood, and ultimately integrated. It is there that we can transform fear into courage, escape into surrender, sabotage into growth. But no one said it would be easy. Jung himself warned, becoming conscious of the shadow involves recognizing the shadow aspects of the personality as present and real. This act is the essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge. This journey requires brutal courage, radical self-honesty, and a willingness to embrace the very things we most try to reject in ourselves. Therefore, understanding the shadow of love is the first step to breaking the cycle of invisible self-sabotage that blocks your ability to connect deeply and authentically. Jung left us this discovery as an invitation to become whole, complete, with all our parts, including and especially those we most try to hide. Because only when we integrate our shadow can we truly love, not just the idealized person we want to be, but the complex and imperfect totality of who we really are. But here's what makes it all the more distressing, the more suffocating. The more you try to protect your heart from this potential pain, the stronger and more complex this internal defense becomes. Jung identified this escalation as mounting tension, a devastating psychological phenomenon where fear, anxiety, and self-protection feed and intensify each other, creating a vicious cycle that seems to have no end. Imagine a rope being stretched beyond its limit, ready to snap at any moment. This is exactly the feeling many people carry within themselves when they approach true intimacy. At first, they're just minor discomforts, doubts that pop up here and there. Is this person really trustworthy? What if I open up and get hurt? But Jung observed something disturbing. Over time, these doubts grow, multiply, transform into concrete fears, and these fears begin to shape all of your relational behaviors. You may start to experience real physical symptoms. A tightness in your chest when someone tries to get close. An urgent inner voice whispering, "It's not safe. It'll end in pain." Or even a desperate urge to run away without even knowing exactly why. Jung observed that this tension isn't just emotional. It manifests itself in concrete physical symptoms. Insomnia that strikes when you're just starting to get involved with someone. Unexplained anxiety that appears in the most intimate moments. Irritability that sabotages important conversations, even psychosomatic illnesses that your body develops as a way to avoid emotional closeness. And as this internal tension grows, it fuels a devastating downward spiral. Self-protection increases, which intensifies fear, which in turn increases the need to escape, and so on, creating a self-reinforcing cycle that grows stronger with each repetition. But the most frightening thing Jung discovered is this. The more this psychological tension builds within you, the more your unconscious develops sophisticated and subtle defenses to keep you trapped in this perpetual conflict zone. These defenses can manifest as seemingly inexplicable self-sabotaging behaviors. You sabotage your relationships before they even have a real chance to flourish. You find imaginary flaws in the right person. You create unnecessary fights in the most vulnerable moments. You emotionally disappear just when they need you most. It can also be a paralyzing fear of truly opening up, an inability to show vulnerability, an internal resistance to asking for help or trusting even people who have proven themselves trustworthy. Jung knew that this cycle is not only painful and exhausting, but also deeply isolating. He observed that people trapped in this mounting tension often feel as if they are watching their own lives from the outside, unable to genuinely connect even when they desperately desire it. But here is something that Jung saw as profound and hopeful in this seemingly destructive process. This growing tension is paradoxically exactly what can awaken the courage necessary for true transformation. He believed that it is only when this inner tension becomes almost unbearable that many people finally find the motivation to seek real answers, to look courageously within themselves, and to confront their most feared shadows face to face. This psychological crisis you're experiencing isn't a sign that something is irremediably wrong with you. It's a sign that your psyche is ready for transformation. It's the pressure necessary for real growth to occur. And that's exactly the crisis you find yourself in now, even if you're not yet fully aware of it. So stay tuned, because what follows is Jung's key to breaking this exhausting cycle once and for all. We'll discuss the revolutionary integrative solution that can transform all this destructive tension into genuine growth and authentic connection. Carl Jung's solution to the fear of intimacy and the invisible self-sabotage it generates is not only profound, it's revolutionary. He called this process shadow integration, a journey of radical self-discovery that invites us to look directly within and embrace the hidden parts of ourselves that we fear most. But what exactly does this integration mean? And why did Jung believe this was the only true form of healing? At its core, integrating the shadow is about accepting a fundamental truth. Within you are hidden aspects, thoughts, feelings, desires, and impulses that have been repressed, denied, or rejected because at some point in your life, you judged them to be dangerous, unacceptable, or inappropriate. For years, perhaps decades, you may have lived as if these dark sides simply didn't exist, trying to hide them even from yourself. But Jung discovered something disturbing. As long as we deny these parts, they don't disappear. In fact, they gain underground strength and influence our actions invisibly, through projection, self-sabotage, and the paralyzing fear we feel inwardly. The process of integration begins when we finally stop running away and consciously pay attention to these repressed contents. It's a kind of courageous awakening to the full truth about ourselves, not just the polished part we like and show to the world, but our full human complexity, with its intertwined lights and shadows. Jung did not offer a single rigid method for this integration, as he understood that it is a deeply personal process unique to each individual. As he himself put it, there is no generally effective technique for assimilating the shadow. It is more like diplomacy or statecraft, and it is always an individual matter. However, Jung indicated specific paths his patients could follow. First, conscious recognition. This means developing the courage to observe your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without immediate judgment, but with scientific curiosity and brutal self-honesty. For example, when you notice that you feel uncomfortable or react negatively in certain intimate situations, you can ask yourself, what part of me is afraid right now? What shadow is trying to protect me? What is this reaction trying to tell me? Second, Jung encouraged internal dialogue, almost like a diplomatic negotiation with these hidden parts of the psyche. Rather than trying to expel or suppress the shadow through willpower, you invite these parts to express themselves, to communicate their genuine intentions and deep fears, so that you can finally understand them. Jung noted that this process can be aided by specific tools: therapeutic writing, where you dialogue with these shadow parts on paper; mindful attention to dreams, which often reveal repressed content; contemplative meditation; and deep analytical therapy. Third, and perhaps most challenging of all, is radical acceptance. This means embracing these shadow parts as legitimate and necessary components of your whole being, integrating them so that your conscious ego can expand and be strengthened by this new self-awareness. And here's something crucial Jung discovered. When the shadow is truly integrated, it doesn't mean you should start acting negatively or destructively. It means you can recognize your darkest impulses, understand their psychological origins, and then consciously and maturely choose how to respond to them. This integration generates something Jung called inner harmony. You become less psychologically divided, less dominated by unconscious internal conflicts, and much more capable of relating authentically, vulnerably, and deeply connected with others. Furthermore, Jung made a startling discovery. Within the shadow often reside repressed talents, blocked creativity, and powerful life energies that have been trapped along with negative aspects. By courageously integrating your shadow, you not only release fear and neurotic defenses, you also awaken an extraordinary latent potential that can completely transform your ability to love and be loved. Helena, the patient we met earlier, experienced exactly this transformation after 2 intense years of work, integrating her shadow. She not only overcame chronic self-sabotage and a paralyzing fear of intimacy, but also blossomed as a human being, discovering an inner peace and relational authenticity previously unknown to her. Therefore, shadow integration is not just a clinical solution to fear of intimacy. It is a courageous invitation to become the whole and complete person you truly are, with all your human imperfections, ancestral fears, deep shadows, and also with all your radiant light and life force. This journey, though intensely challenging, is the master key to transforming paralyzing fear into courageous love, destructive self-sabotage into conscious growth, and painful loneliness into true and lasting human connection. We've reached the moment of truth, that crucial moment when everything you believed about your fear of intimacy begins to be questioned, deconstructed, and finally reconstructed in a completely new light. Jung reveals a profound and liberating insight. What we truly fear when we avoid closeness is not intimacy itself. What truly provokes this silent dread within us is being known in all our vulnerable totality. It is the overwhelming fear of being seen with all our flaws, our suspected flaws, the hidden frailties we try to hide even from ourselves. It's not the surface that scares us. It's the unmasked dive into the depths of our soul, that place where we keep fears, secrets, and pains that we never dare reveal. This fear manifests as an invisible pressure on your soul, a powerful blockage that paralyzes you at the very moment true intimacy approaches. You can feel this tension building, as if an invisible barrier has been erected to protect what you believe to be your most fragile self. But here's the most liberating truth Jung delivered. True love doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't ask for masks nor flawless facades. Genuine love is a radical invitation to show yourself whole, with your lights and your shadows, your triumphs and your imperfections. And you know what's most powerful about that? You don't have to hide your flaws. You don't have to pretend to be someone else to be loved. This deep acceptance is perhaps the most revolutionary and healing freedom you can experience in a relationship. And therein lies the paradox. The fear that seemed so overwhelming must be seen for what it really is. The fear of not being accepted in one's entirety. The fear of showing oneself and being rejected. But Jung wanted you to know something fundamental. It's not fear, or the absence of it, that will free you to truly love. What truly hinders love is the lack of courage to be vulnerable in the face of that fear. The moment you choose to face that fear, give it space, and dare to show your true face to the world, you open the door to a kind of love that transcends the superficial, the fleeting, and the mediocre. This is the love that heals, transforms, and gives deep meaning to your existence. So stop for a moment and reflect honestly. How many times have you given the shadows of fear control of your story? How many times have you chosen to hide, to close yourself off, to distance yourself, for fear of not being loved for who you truly are? This is your personal invitation to come out of hiding once and for all, to free yourself from the invisible chains of self-rejection, and embark on the journey of radical authenticity. Because, as Jung taught us, true intimacy begins exactly where fear ends. The very moment you choose courage in the face of fear, true connection becomes possible. And this is your chance, your opportunity, to rewrite your story and pave the way for a fulfilling, transformative, and genuinely connected emotional life.